So the exhibition Strange Relations is a partnership between Outside In and Fabrica, two organisations working with visual arts and artists in different ways, but I think complementing each other and bringing something different to the table. We are very much a charity that supports and enables artists who face significant barriers to the art world to have their work seen and valued, and to deliver a fair opportunity for all who create, so that they can get the chances that other people do.
Bottom right corner speaker.
The artists who were presenting in this exhibition work at two completely different scales, using completely different materials, and make their work about completely different subject matter. But the thing that ties them together is the thematic of the exhibition, which is about looking at extremity and diversity as two interlinked ideas.
My practice is partly autobiographical, so it does tend to be inspired by my own experiences. And I think that my background as a weaver and the fact that I'm neurodivergent, have had chronic illnesses, those kind of do come into it, but it's also about examining where those identities kind of fit in with society at large. So the work that's in the exhibition is kind of an autobiographical story. I hope it kind of forms a bit of a narrative of my experience of diagnosis and treatment of severe endometriosis.
We've got 3, 2,
It's on the back wall, okay. It's kind of one of those conditions where you have to do so much research yourself and so much sort of self-advocacy, and you really have to kind of fight to get treatment. And so after I kind of had my surgery and I was recovering, I sort of was thinking, well, actually, how do I feel about this experience? How do I feel about this? And I just kind of started creating these works kind of as a way of sort of processing everything. And whenever you went into a clinic, all the posters or all the leaflets, they were all these kind of very sort of hyper feminine images of sort of women kind of holding their stomachs surrounded by pink flowers, or kind of sad women reaching out to kind of sad looking babies. So that's where that kind of aesthetic of the work came from. And it did kind of really make me consider my relationship to kind of femininity, gender, fertility, because endometriosis as a condition, although it affects people of all genders, cis and trans, it's primarily associated with women. So I was very interested in the kind of imagery that comes with health conditions that we associate with women, and also just the way that they're kind of conceived and portrayed within society. So I kind of just get everything out in front of me on a table, and usually I have an idea in my head and I work very instinctively. I just know what material needs to go with which item and which sculpture and how they work together. As a woman who was diagnosed in my late 20s with autism, it's been something that for me has always been quite a struggle. But I think my ability to really sort of spot patterns and connections is kind of integral to the way that I work with creating sculptures. So, for example, I can see that this part of a hair clip, if I take this part and I take it apart, it fits perfectly into this deconstructed light switch. So I think that kind of pattern spotting is what helps me work really instinctively.
Even Giants Have to Bend is like a found moment that I stumbled across like a photographer would. I suppose it's an example of trying to stay open to the moment, and that expands into sonic art, where I record quite a bit of stuff that's around in the environment, and it might stay as it is, or I might process it. I was walking the dog and I heard this amazing sound over my head, and when I looked up I saw the trees. The movement was wonderful, and the sound of the the sort of swishing was moving around, and I was surrounded by a sort of howl of drones, sort of the wind in the tree trunks as well. So I clamped the camera onto a stand looking straight upwards. So that's the view we get on the screen here. And I've also got some microphones which were pointing outwards, which grab the surround sound, so it sort of mimics what I was hearing. And because it's a quad surround sound system, the sounds merge and produce a wash that's moving around with the leaves. So you can kind of hear the ripple of a gust of wind approaching from the leaves sort of over there, and then it comes across the screen and out the other side. But I hope people who stumble across it here will get a sense of just the movement and the awesome spectacle, because this is like life size. You look up at the ceiling, the trees are moving, and that's how it was. This was a year ago, so this was during lockdown. So no one else was about, but the world was full of people on the telly discovering Zoom and being in little boxes with really nasal voices and computers glitching, and this was a moment where everything fell away. But also maybe a year or two before, I just got hearing aids, and before that I hadn't realised how bad my hearing had got. And if I'd walked along there without the hearing aids, I wouldn't have heard the trees. This particular piece, it's in a lot of ways it's not actually typical of what I've been doing over the years. There's been a lot of more intensive stuff to do with creating music from chaos and repetition. It's algorithmic music that it's self-generating. But gradually, there's no doubt my hearing's going to suffer as time goes on. My mum ended up stone deaf. So I'm moving towards more sort of abstract animation, which kind of represents the music. So it's like a visual music. That's what I'm aiming for.
I think it's very exciting to experience within one exhibition these kind of extremes of scale. You know, there's a kind of wow factor to seeing a big overwhelming work, and there's also this sense of overpowering these incredibly delicate, intimate pieces. But when you've got the viewer in this size shifting experience, isn't that a great moment to ask about, okay, normal scale, but norms of behaviour, normal ways of doing things, and how to somebody who doesn't have to think about that question most of the time, you perhaps begin to see other people who don't have that experience.
What we're doing as a charity is first and foremost is supporting artists. So my ambitions and hope would always be that they have a positive experience from it. These few and rare opportunities, can be life-changing. I think any time we hang a picture on the wall actually is life-changing. I know that from any exhibitions we do. You will see the impact of being acknowledged and accepted and given value and credence. And I think I always hope that that affirmation that all of this does is in a way it's one of the most powerful things you can do, and it's so easily not really appreciated. And because we see other things as being more important.
There was really a lot of time for me and Simon to discuss what we liked about each other's works, and we sort of found there was a lot of connection between both of our works, despite being almost kind of the opposite in terms of scale. So even just having the time to really get to know the other artist and their work has been brilliant. And I just love Simon's piece as well. I just think the scale of it, the way it takes up the whole ceiling, the sound, the visuals is really mesmerising. Even just watching them test it out, I couldn't take my eyes off it.
As far as Karis's work is concerned, I just, right from the start, I found it so disarming and touching and unexpected but familiar. And we've actually have quite a lot in common in terms of living with pain and our bodies mutating, without our permission, and feeling the fallout from that. So it's a lovely exhibition. I hope anyone who walks in here will just be able to lose themselves for a few moments and just allow this to have some effect. This affected me. What Karis has done is obviously what's affected her life. And that's what we're all about as human beings.